Flip the switch, turn it on. Animation's never gone. From Toontown tales to frames that glow. Behind the scenes, come join the show. It's Lightbox. Bright ideas, cartoons alive. Lightbox, where animation thrives. Sketch it, ink it, bring it to life. Let's talk anime, art, and cartoons tonight. Lightbox, the internet way.
Here, we're here. Okay, welcome to Lightbox, the official podcast of Animate, the West Australian Animation Association. Whether you're an aspiring animator, seasoned professional, or simply a fan of the magical world of animation, you've come to the right place. My name is Tanya Beeson.
And I'm David O'Connell.
And we're going to be your guide on this monthly journey into the animation industry in Western Australia. Each month, Lightbox will bring you the latest and greatest in animation news, from upcoming films and short shows to industry discussions that will inspire and empower the talented animators who call Western Australia home. We'll also delve into the creative processes and challenges faced by our local animators as they work tirelessly to bring their unique visions to life. So buckle up, get ready, and be amazed as we explore the vibrant and ever-evolving world of West Australian animation. This is Lightbox, and we're just getting started. Before we go on, we wish to acknowledge and honour the traditional custodians of the land we are streaming from, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We recognise and celebrate their enduring culture, the rich tapestry of Indigenous arts, and the invaluable contributions they make to the vibrancy and cultural diversity to the city and the region.
And before we dive into today's content, we'd also like to issue a quick advisory warning. While our channel is generally suitable on most occasions for all audiences, there's sometimes we delve into topics or showcase content that might not be appropriate for younger viewers. We strive to create engaging, enjoyable content for everyone, but please be advised some material may not be suitable for those children. Parental discretion is advised, and we encourage you to review the content before sharing it with younger audiences. Our goal is to provide a safe and enjoyable viewing experience for all, and we appreciate your understanding and support in this area. Having said that, today should be okay, just in general. We'll see how we go.
Should be okay? No,
should be okay.
Should be okay. Mostly G-rated realm. Yeah, okay. I think we're in that realm. Okay. Well, maybe we should start with the news and some deaths.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so we've lost George Lowe, the voice of Space Ghost, and Clive Reville, Alfred Pennyworth in Batman the Animated Series. Both passed away this month, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It is, actually. I wasn't, I have to admit, I enjoyed Space Ghost originally. I wasn't a massive Space Ghost Coast to Coast fan, but I'm still going with the action figure. But yeah, Batman the Animated Series, that's one of my beating hearts, quite frankly. So yeah.
Yes. So I've never watched both of those series. So yeah. I mean, I had caught some Space Ghost, but I just didn't engage with it at all. It wasn't my thing. Space Ghost Coast to Coast, I mean. I was not around to watch the original Space Ghost. I don't recall ever seeing it at any point. So.
Oh wow! Okay, I'm of that sort of age that there was quite a lot of repeats, and that was one of the superhero shows that I grew up with. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. So all right, so let's continue on then.
Yes.
So we've got Adult Swim's renewed Common Side Effects for a second season. So we've got.
It's going gangbusters. I'm seeing it popping up everywhere. So
yeah, I admit it's something I haven't taken a look at yet. I really should, given its given its pedigree, the next thing from the creators of Scavenger's Reign. So yeah,
very cool.
really should.
We also have Max now starting here in Australia as well.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get a lot of the animated stuff for
Warner Brothers. Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network as well. Yeah, delivered quicker in a better sort of fashion rather than it may go to Foxtel, it may go to binge. Yeah, let's see what happens. And yep.
Common side effects was good. Looking forward.
I need.
Yeah, but
I need to catch it.
It's true. Speaking of Warner's, Coyote versus Acme is finally going to see a release, which 2022 that it was finished and sitting in the can.
Yeah,
Does that,
and vaulted for tax purposes, but it's getting a release through Catch-Up, so I believe
I'm looking forward to it
being finalized. So yeah, and hopefully. Now this is something that I haven't had a chance to watch yet. I don't even know if it's showing on Australian streaming services in any way, shape, or form at the moment. But it's something we probably should touch on. Twins Hanahima, the world's first AI anime. So 95% of it is AI generated.
That was only a couple of days ago. Yeah. Yeah,
screened late March 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious on your thoughts on this.
Look, I don't mind anime. I don't mind AI as a tool. I'm curious to see their pipeline, because if they're using it to, scratch generate all the art, if they're using it for in-betweening and coloring, that's a different story. So the inclusion of AI in what we're doing as a tool to support and help, animators, rather than completely replace the creative process. But if it's actually doing the designs, then we might have to think about, that. But I'm curious to see how it's done. So it would require a little bit of a deep dive into their processes. So.
Yeah, it's weird. I think my main problem is the main problem I have with almost all AI processes in releasing that sort of minor elements of work, and leaving the higher sort of aspects of it. You kind of get in the skill gap. Well, it's fine for at the moment. You've got those people that have worked their way up through the industry, learned the skills, and have those sort of skills that they can function at a higher sort of command or directorial level. But forward, how do you pick up those initial sort of skills and that sort of competencies to be able to function like that if the rest of the job is being done from an AI?
Well, it is noticeable. It is noticeable when a professional uses an AI versus someone who's just playing around with prompts. I'm not talking about an AI professional. I'm talking about an artist. So any sort of time that I see that. So it is showing, signs of being customizable and adjusted by the creative people who could push it in different directions. But yeah, there is also a weird separation between AI as a tool and AI as a generator.
Yeah.
So
especially as it's generating more AI content, it's getting to the stage where it's a bit of a snake eating its own tail situation. It's scraping from AI content to produce AI content. Therefore, it's producing very similar stuff. Yeah.
And it will degenerate fairly fast if it continues to go down that path.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
And 3:30.
Oh, yeah. So, what? All my banners and things. Where? Where is that? Media assets. Look, the 330.
Hey.
See, I don't have a clean page to hide. Like, we can do it behind us.
No.
330 animation competition. Great. So
It's worse.
it's worse. How about that? No, that's
Hey.
not. It's just
Look at it. As long as my face is not filling up the screen, I think we're doing okay.
Oh, fair enough. So the 330 animation competition is in full swing now. The word has been released. The word officially is the word West, not lemon. Thank you, those people who picked up on that April Fool.
But yes, it is West.
It is West. So yes, yeah, we totally appreciate your endeavors in pushing films out over the next 3 months. We'll be potentially reaching out, and I think we should do a little bit of an interview, maybe with some team somewhere that's doing stuff, and see how panicked they are about it.
Sounds good. Any chance we could also possibly talk to a previous winner?
That would be a good idea. And we'll let's make because we have plans for next month. But what about the month after? We have a 330 sort of retrospective, and talk about the processes that people are going through as we're getting towards the end of the 330. So that sounds like a fun episode we could potentially do. Okay, let's get rid of these words because they're distracting. And comments. Upcoming. Okay. We've got something to talk about. Because Dave and I managed to see a preview screening of The Day the Earth Blew Up. Yes, which
it's been out for a couple of weeks now, but yeah, it's still on screens, which is, if you get a chance, see it on the big screen.
It's great. I personally loved it. It does harken back to I'd say 40s style Warner Brothers stuff. There's definitely that loopy Tex Avery style.
It's much more Tex than Chuck. Yeah.
So even to the full-on point of Daffy's reactions, and I love Daffy Duck as a character. My preference is Chuck Jones, but I'm happy with the way the film turned out as well. So.
And this pacing is very Chuck Jones as well. It's a sort of frantic rush for the gag, and it manages to keep that through the hour and a half that it's running for.
Which is weird for a Looney Tunes film. There's this sudden realization of, are we still in the same Looney Tunes cartoon? Because normally they're over in 7 minutes. It's
Yeah. It's also a little bit surreal, as you'd expect from the director, because he was involved in Uncle Grandpa, I believe. So, you get that. And there's a lot of horror and sci-fi references from the 50s and 80s, and fair few cartoon references from the 30s as well.
Yeah.
Including one of its stars, Virginia Big, is... back for the first time since is it the 70s?
I think like she's made appearances in things, but not necessarily speaking roles, aside from small bits. Like, she is probably the least seen of the Warner Brothers. So she was created in 1937 as a character, and appeared as one of the side characters in Porky's romantic Day, I think the name of the episode is.
She's pretty much a rip-off of Minnie Mouse in that sort of aspect. Just not really a character, just the love interest. You know?
Yeah, you add slap a longer hair and a bow on, you pretty much got,
And she's an amazing character and almost steals the show. That entrance is just a work of comedy art. That really is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's grand.
Overall, she's definitely a standout character. Also, the farmer, who is just this running joke through. It gives Porky and Daffy a farm-based backstory where they grew up together, which is really cleverly done in a bit of an homage to the Lion King. And also what is it? Daniel Boone style.
Yep. And there's a lot of references in there and jokes in there. There's like Beans the cat from the Warner Brothers in the 30s is referenced. The horse from Chuck Jones's War Draft is there as well. There's some deep cuts there, and things like John Carpenter's The Thing. I would never have thought I'd see that referenced visually in a Warner Brothers film. in a Warner Brothers cartoon, and it was there. No, it's a fun piece. It really is.
It's good, and there's an awesome take on the bad guy as well. So I found I was engaged the whole film. So, and it's definitely worth going and checking out. So,
I'm not sure if it'll make our best of the year list, but it'll be one of those. Let's see how we go. I compare this to like Wild Robot. Would you put it up there? No, but it would be an honorable mention. It's easy as that.
But it could be easy in compared to Shrek 5.
Yeah.
Which has been announced, kids. Okay, so let's see
how we go. All right, out now. I'm gonna bumble through a lot of things here. Look, the new anime season has launched in Japan, so that's spring for them. So there's a lot of stuff that's either just been released in the last day or two, or is coming out in the next day or two. So we're very front-heavy loaded for this month. Look, notable animes that are coming out or out at the moment are Lazarus, Devil May Cry, Yaba Samurai Legend, Witch Watch, One Piece is still going. The beginning after the end, that one keep an eye on because that could be very interesting. The light novel has apparently got quite a strong fandom. So see how that goes. Fire Force Season 3 and Shirley, so Anne of Green Gables.
Is that so? They already made that as an anime. Is that a continuation?
They did, but from the 80s. So it's drawing on that for inspiration. There's a lot. There seems to be a fair few sort of 70s and 80s animes that are being revisited in the last year or two. Even Yaba Samurai Legend, although I'm not that familiar with it as a series, is one of those sort of animes. So it looks interesting, and they've looked like they've sort of taken a little of the stylistic leanings that 80s anime, 70s or 80s anime had. God, it's so hard with re-releases in European theaters, but yeah,
I thought it was the 80s, but
yeah, could well be. But anyway, there's some stylistic leanings towards that, but it's definitely updated. So yeah, take a look at that. And Windbreaker Season 2 is also been released as well, which is the bad boy gangster sort of anime fight.
Out today is My Hero Academia, which is probably where a lot of my students are watching.
Oh, it's Vigilantes. Right. It's a side series to the actual series. Oh, okay. So it's a spin-off basically. Yep.
I don't
tomorrow
know
we
how
should
you pronounce the next one, which is
Wax,
Gundam.
apparently, or Gwax, or something along those lines. It's a very strange pronunciation. So Gundam Gwax. It's a reimagining of Gundam. It's a reimagining of it's a reimagining of Gundam by the person responsible for Shin Godzilla and Neon Genesis. So I am so looking forward to that. I think that would be very interesting. Just what if Char had actually got the Gundam in the 1 year war seems to be the changing point for the timeline. So you can add yet another Gundam timeline into the list of infinite Gundam timelines. April 9th, Miraculous World London at the Edge of Time special is on Disney. April 10th, King of Kings is being released in cinemas in Australia. This one's got a really stacked voice cast. I was kind of surprised how good a cast it actually has.
And you allowed to talk about it?
I have not seen it yet, so I can't.
Okay.
I did not put my hand up to review it.
Okay.
Truth be told, yeah. But I was quite surprised at the state voice cast. And we were talking about Kenneth Branagh and Uma Thurman as Charles Dickens and his wife in it, which is curious.
It's a frame story from Charles Dickens talking to his kids, which weird, but
it's based on a short Charles Dickens story, but they're using it as a biblical epic. So yeah. Well, curious to see.
We're getting this and Passion of the Christ too. So sure.
Yeah. Okay. Kaiju number 8, Mission Recon is also in cinemas on the same day.
Have I mentioned I hate anime titles?
This is a weird one because it looks to be a compilation movie of the last season of Kaiju number 8. So which is Kaiju number 8 is quite good. I enjoyed it. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it is a fun anime and it does what it does very well. Moonrise is coming out on Netflix, I believe, on April 10th.
Cool.
Which is another new series. The Rose of Versailles.
Versailles.
Versailles. Sorry, I should say. God, what the heck? Yeah. All right.
It's all right. We're professionals.
Yeah. Take 2. The Rose of Versailles is coming out on April 30th. And that's going to be an interesting one.
It looks really pretty. So if you like your Bushiju anime, it's very, very pretty boys and girls. Yeah, and very
it was it was one of the original mangas and animes that kind of spurned created the BL movement. Boys love sort of anime genre. So I was credited as that. So yeah, be interesting. And also on April 30th, we've got Asterix and Obelix: The Big Fight, which I believe is a series rather than a movie. So that could be interesting.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I love Asterix, so we'll see. The movies can be really hit and miss, but yeah. Go back to the original.
That should be good. Cool. Alrighty.
Okay.
So
are we oh God, we're here already.
We're here already.
Without our third person, we're quite. Oh, look at it. Oh, speaking of the
hey, hi everybody.
I was just going to say, without our third person, we're quite efficient.
Yes, you're seeing a much wider view of me this evening because my little driver decided to go on holiday when I updated my motherboard. It was like, so it's all good now. Hi, everybody.
With Lindsay just joining us, we're about to delve into the great and wonderful life of Don Bluth.
Good grief.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you missed the news, Linz.
I fear so. Val Kilmer passed away, I hear. So the live action world was somewhat bereft.
Well, should we
True.
backtrack on that one thing with the news? Just let you know that.
That'll come.
Yeah, well, that too as well.
Sorry.
Sorry,
What
yeah.
do you
So I was going to say, should we tell Lindsay about the first 95% AI anime being released that has been released in Japan last month?
Oh,
yeah.
dear God. Really?
Where was it? It was the
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
called
Twin Cinema. It's the one down at the
Hinahima. Yeah.
in the
It's
hill.
the bottom right one. Sorry, not
Right.
bottom left.
I see.
But, yeah.
Oh, that must
yeah,
have been quite an effort. They've all got their fingers.
Well, yeah. I'm curious how it was done because I'm assuming at some point it's we're going to start looking at the technology and seeing how animes are put out there. I reckon we'll see a glut of these once people realize that they can do them at home. So,
Yes,
and
some people have this. Oh, sorry.
well, the thing about it is, I think it will really come down to the writing and the storytelling for animation moving forward if anime is taking over. So, yeah, not anime, AI is taking over.
Well, some people have described it as the heat death of information, basically, which I thought was a pretty good description. But yeah, if you're just using generative AI to make everything, it's like, and you're not just using it for referencing or researching or anything like that. It's like,
It's a tool.
really? Is there any reason why I should be getting up and paying any money to see this thing? It's like, seriously. It's there's got to be a point to the stuff. We don't, otherwise you're going to have a flood of this stuff and none of it's going to be worth anything. It won't have any relevance to anyone. It will just be animated wallpaper churned out en masse at an industrial scale. If you want to, it keeps reminding me of when the first modern iPhones turned up, about 2008. And suddenly there was this huge gold rush for making your own apps for these things. And in the first month, I think they were selling, people making apps all over the place. I know when I was working at Interzone, the games company, briefly, everybody there was trying to get in on the act, and they were able to sell apps for like $30 in the first month. I think after 3 months, you could be lucky to get $5 or $10. After 4 or 5 months, it was like they were giving them away, and then no one's been paying for them ever since. So, an app's almost like a web page now. And so essentially, if you want to see this do the same thing, well, I can't see this not doing it, basically. So there won't be it. I mean, it's one of those paradoxes of the internet where it's so busy pulling the boot into legacy media, but it totally depends on it for its content for a lot of the stuff. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out.
I'm optimistic.
It's a list of various things we're not sure how it's going to work out.
That's it.
Around the world at this moment in time.
I mean, well, we were just doing some photogrammetry, and also retopologizing in 3D today at the TAFE. And if there's one thing that AI does really, really good, it's like, here's a model I want to retopologize. I've spent all this time building the shape. It's all looking good. And then basically it sits down and analyzes the shape of the thing and then works out the best topology for it. And that's a classic example where one of these things heuristically gets a big chunk of data and just massages it and then finds a pattern, offers you the pattern, and then you can refine it, which I think is where this stuff really shines. And it's one of those things that'll automate a lot of the dull, repetitive horror jobs that you end up doing in digital production.
So something you were saying, Tanya, in the hands of an expert, it'll actually produce good results.
Definitely. All the best AI results I've seen have been people that have been art directors in their time. So it makes a difference. So it's going to be one of those things where, done the right way, it's going to allow a small team to make their own animation without compromising any sense of creativity or production. It'll take all the horror stuff out of it and keep all the good stuff in. You just have to survive the transition, I think. So it reminds me a lot of rotoscoping and motion capture when they appeared not so much rotoscoping in animation, but certainly when motion capture appeared, the howl of horror that I heard come from the old traditional keyframe animators that had been brought up and raised on Disney and Pixar was just, deafening. But it's just another way of making materials now. So I see the same
Quick
thing.
question. Do you think it'll be as liberating for animation as like VHS was for filmmaking?
I think it's a slightly different context, and I think it really depends on how it's used. Like, if it's going to end up helping people make Blender movies, it's going to be a good thing. But if you're just using it to kind of as a substitute for something, like I just want to make something, plop, there it is. Hey, look at all my own hard work. I think that's going to be worthless. I think you've got to have something to say and bring to the table if you want to even engage an audience. And frankly, not everybody's sitting on two screens, busy flipping through TikTok on one and then not watching your video on the other. It's like, thanks, you can keep that. That's not a market I want to service. If you need animated wallpaper, well, good luck to you. But I didn't get this far by just phoning it in, literally. And I think a sense of commitment will be paid off in your audience. It's a form of communication. You're communicating to them, and if you kind of subvert or short circuit that, well, then you might as well not get up in the morning, and they won't bother getting up in the morning either if what you're doing doesn't mean anything. So that's always going to be a problem. Anyway, we'll see how it plays out. Definitely in the background production process. AI is doing things like, denoising an image, for example. That's a great example of an AI doing some virtuous work, if you like. Or it's essentially what it does, it just takes all the existing technologies that we use to anti-alias something and then sticks it under one roof, really, and then works with what it's got.
Cleaner green screens.
Absolutely. And so the old Ralph Bakshi thing, like, hey, you've got this magic box that can make a movie. Why aren't you making movies with it? So it's definitely an enabler, but it can also be a short circuit as well.
Yeah,
it's like people want cheap stuff, but they don't want to be extorted. There's a big difference between doing stuff efficiently and cheaply, and then there's Google hoovering up every bit of data and then fencing it back to everybody at 1% its original value.
Yeah, we were discussing how it's become a kind of a Ouroboros situation. Just regurgitating what's been regurgitated previously.
And then regurgitating what it was regurgitated, so it's eating its own leftovers, and then those leftovers have been eaten again. And you just end up with nonsense. So, or worse, you're just going to end up with some, some strange attractors. I suspect, big-breasted anthro anime porn or something like that.
Well, we did try to keep it child friendly, so I'm sorry about that.
Watch out, parents. That's
well, I was worried where it was going to go when you said filmmaking came big in the 80s post the creation of the VHS.
Here's the thing. Here's the sobering fact, everyone. The fact is, the worst example of something becomes the representative of it. Yeah, it's like when you look at 80s videos, we're not thinking, oh, those awesome 80s movies. We're thinking, God, that really shit VHS quality that we remember and get so nostalgic for. And when we think about bitmap games, we're thinking, oh, well, those terrible Atari 2600 graphics. Oh my God, that becomes the representative of what a computer game was.
Adventure. I saw there was an action figure for the dragon from Adventure being released.
I hope they've shaved off the edges. You wouldn't want to cut yourself on those sharp edges. Why not? It's the cheapest use of Lego blocks I can think of. Wow, there's irony for you.
Okay, let's get on to the topic tonight, which is Don Bluth.
Speak about innovation in video games.
Yeah, the Laserdisc age.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. Let's talk about his origins, because he grew up in Utah, so a member of the Church of Mormon.
Yep. But very much, he was born in 1937, Grew up in Utah, but he was very much a product of the Disney age. So he, grew up watching Disney films in the cinema and then riding home and copying Disney comics so he knew how to draw. So it's definitely a child that grew up with those sort of that classic animation, front and center in his life. In 1955, he started work at Disney as an assistant to John Lasbury on Sleeping Beauty. That only lasted for a little bit because he, in 57, went on missionary work in Argentina. And then when he returned to the US, he opened a theatre in Culver City producing musicals. Later, he went to Brigham Young University. I think that was his second time at Brigham Young, and earned a degree in literature. In 67, he joined Filmation, which we're going to have to talk about at some age down the track as well, aren't we? When we're looking at
I think Lou needs to be talked about. We do.
So so doing layouts for the Archie Show and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. In 71 he returned to Disney. So do you want to take over here, Tanya?
Yeah, I can definitely talk a little bit about that. He, as a more mature animator coming back to Disney, he found he was chafing because during the 70s, like Disney were having they were into that, post-process stuff. They were using the photocopier, the Xeroxer, quite a lot more.
Budgets had dipped, then the earnings had dipped as well.
Dear Leader was dead, yes.
Dear Leader had gone. He said that he found the work kind of boring, but I've also found like other comments that he really chafed against, like wanting to know how a lot of classic animation stuff that was done on older films was done, and finding out the 9 Old Men never recorded any of it. So they just
really?
So they there's an instance where he's talking to one of the 9 Old Men. I got to remember their name. No. Talking about more modern. One of the two that wrote the Magic of wrote the book.
The Magic of Disney.
Yeah.
So the big thick one. They can kind of
that big chunk. Yeah. One of those. He was talking to those guys. Said, well, how did you achieve that stuff? And they said, well, we never wrote it down, so we'd have to go and do our R&D again. And he found that quite a little bit difficult to deal with, and he was disillusioned with Disney. He'd worked on Sleeping Beauty, gone away on his mission. So, hello, my name is Elder Bluth, and then come back to something a little bit subpar to what he remembered.
I found that a bit weird that they didn't record anything, because if there's one thing that Disney is notorious or famous for, was it's what everyone else in the industry at the time used to call the mausoleum, where they basically hoarded everything, hoarded all their cells and all their animations and everything.
They hoarded it, but they didn't record how to do it.
That's right. So it was almost like they kept the assets for reuse, for eternal re-release every 10 years or so, and at premium rates, which is something that Disney has always been doing. But you listen to some of the Warner Brothers crowd on some of all the Bakshi's of the world, and they were all basically saying disparaging remarks about Disney and his mausoleum, and because they used to refer to that all the time. You'll find all the 60s and 70s stuff. They're referring to all that old ancient stuff and using it as reference for newer stuff. So I find it really weird they never wrote it down.
So Don Bluth really stepped away and found fame as his own independent animator. So he also dragged away Gary Goldman and John Pomeroy after
Yeah,
the
there's
Fox out.
About a dozen of them, I thought.
Yeah, there was.
Like a whole section walked out with him, didn't they?
Yeah, and formed. I think that's part of the grudge that Disney had against him. So when they came to doing their own thing for Don Bluth Productions, it really got Disney's goat.
Yeah, and also I think he wanted a quality aspect as well, because Disney, as you're saying, was reusing animations, reusing sequences, reusing rotoscope. The budgets were no longer there in that era, and it was an era that Disney was struggling for.
Well, it's dark Disney, isn't it?
Yeah. So their first thing, the first big thing was the animated sequence in Xanadu. So the alternate world flower turn into birds sequence. So if you haven't seen Xanadu, it is a I love Xanadu, but I would not put it amongst the best films of all time.
It's like all the people that used to make musicals in the 60s in their doddering old age trying to resurrect the old magic for the 70s. And apart from the fact they've kind of dragged in Olivia Newton-Bomb, it sort of goes nowhere fast.
Not only Olivia Newton-John.
The Bee Gees. Was it Bee Gees?
No, they called it ELO did the soundtrack.
That's right, ELO.
The actor who
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly, God.
Gene Kelly in roller skates, it's amazing.
Yeah, that it's something. I suppose you can easily watch it once and you understand what we're talking about.
But the animated sequence is.
Ironically, I think in some ways, the animated sequence is probably the worst aspect of Xanadu by being the best aspect of Xanadu. It's no, hear me out. Bluth knows his job and put out a competent piece, so it's a good piece. It stands out in Xanadu because Xanadu, no one else has a freaking clue of what they're doing, and it's a beautiful disaster piece because of that.
It's the epitome of, it's like almost as daggy as Steve Gutenberg. Imagine someone taking Steve Gutenberg, melting him down and turning him into a film as a sort of formula. That's Xanadu.
I love it as a film. I love it as a stage play. It is amazing, but I love it for all the wrong reasons. And I
remember seeing clips on television of all the visual effects they used in it. I thought, I should check that out. And oh boy, was I disappointed.
Come on.
No.
I think
it at the time. This is back in the 80s when I was about teen still.
In its cheesiness, I think the Greek myth thing really appeals to me. Olivia Newton-John definitely.
Yeah, she was the it girl of the time, wasn't she?
All of that.
Yeah.
But of course, they got that out and really were able to focus on their first feature film production, which was The Secret of Nim. Which is a beautiful film. Really, really nicely done. It harkens back to classic animations. Its story is intense. Really, really nice designs. Of course, Don Bluth carries that Disney aesthetic in his art, and a lot of people, over the years have confused it. Why isn't this film a Disney film?
Well, it would have been if Fantasia had never failed and films like Pinocchio kept going. Yeah. That's what when I look at The Rats of Nim, I see that as almost like an alternative Disney, where Disney didn't get blown up by Fantasia and was still able to make films that were kind of pushing the whole medium forward and still being quite mature and dark at the same time, like Pinocchio.
But around this time, you get Disney trying to follow that sort of dark aspect that is in Secret of Nim.
Well,
is it Black Cauldron at the time?
When they
Black Cauldron is 85. So
I thought it was a lot sooner, a lot earlier than that. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I thought Disney in the 70s was trying to chase current trends at the time. Current trends in the 70s were basically dystopian. A bit like now.
1985 for the Black Cauldron.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, you're right. Wow.
Okay. Much later. My bad.
Yeah, that's the same here. I remember it from. I imagine I saw it in my early teens.
It would have been Disney's reaction to The Secret of Nim. Oh, people want darker stuff. Because Nim wasn't an unpopular film, despite the fact that it bankrupted Don Bluth.
That's a common theme, which we'll hear a few more times this episode.
Don Bluth learnt the hard way why Disney was cutting corners. Yeah,
it's true. And like he's got some spectacular masterpieces, but wasn't expensive. And
well, that was the AI of the day.
Yeah, he did value quality, which is weird to believe when we're going to start talking about The Land Before Time and the various sequels of The Land Before Time a bit later on. But yeah,
before that, we're going to talk about the rise of the arcade, and of course, weirdly, people remember these games for their visuals, not for their gameplay.
No, because essentially they're a CD-ROM. They're essentially a CD-ROM menu game, if you think about it. Yeah. But I remember the first one. Oh, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, but they are a precursor to the QuickTime event.
Absolutely. In many ways. So around the 80s, when they started to appear, CD-ROMs were the big thing. So 16-bit computing at home was starting to supplant 8-bit computing. So things like the Commodore 64, which had ruled the roost for the first half of the 80s, effectively, was disappearing and fast being replaced by things like the 16-bit party computer called the Amiga, and the
Atari ST.
The Atari ST. So the Amiga was the multimedia animation version with its little RF cord out the back and its gen lock and all that stuff. Well, the Atari ST was the first choice of all musos because it had MIDI port out the back. And there was a couple of others out there as well. I think the original Apples were 16-bit as well. They were just black and white. It looked like patronizing little toasters even back then. But what they did was introduce a sort of consistent, mature, organized, coherent sort of product range for computing, which was pretty important. And they sort of established essentially what became known as desktop publishing. So at the time of the Amiga and similar graphics like that, a lot of it was being driven by the Cinema Aware games, where they had CD-ROM games that would be heavy on content, which was only available on a CD-ROM because hard drives didn't really exist back then. It was just floppies, and if you had a hard drive, it would hold 5 meg or something and cost you an arm and a leg. So the CD-ROMs were doing big business or being touted as the next big thing at home. And at the same time in the arcades, these turned up, and they had there was always a crowd around one whenever I was going to the arcades back as a wee nipper. But the actual gameplay was just like, turn left, turn right. You were just queuing a video edit, really, and you had to time it so you didn't accidentally get hit by a block or something like that. So a lot of the people I know who love the game never actually played it. They just watched other people play it because it was much more entertaining that way. Yeah, see how far people could get. So, but it was all CD-ROM. So
still some nice animation. So Dragon's Lair with Dirk Daring, adventure going into a castle. You control Dirk and stop him from falling into many traps in several rooms as he climbs the tower to fight the dragon to rescue the princess. So, and Princess Daphne is the character. Right. So Princess Daphne makes the transition. Well.
It's really hard to understand what a huge impact. Sort of what a huge moment it actually had. I mean, we're getting articles of it on the news in Australia.
So you go into an arcade, it's all high-speed, high-performance arcade machines. So essentially 8-bit computing. And what made the arcades stand out at the time was their speed and their responsiveness. They were like pinball machines and really challenging, because a lot of the pinball companies were making their own games, and they were making them to, like, you know, show off your skills. So you get games like Defender, which looks like just a bunch of pixels moving around, but that thing is brutal. And then suddenly in the middle of this sea of Pac-Man breakout games, Defenders, Space Invaders and all that, a full-blown Disney film in an arcade box pops up, and it's like, oh my god, what the hell is this? I think if you played it, it's barely 10 minutes long. If you managed to get through the whole thing, you basically played a 10-minute film or something. It wasn't very long, and yeah, it was quite something. So it definitely sort of.
I think it's something like 16 minutes or something like that. But yeah,
it's somewhere 10, 12 something minutes. I can't remember the details, but it wasn't long. So it attracted an easy audience that could just.
I will verify the link.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Dragon's Lair. I think there was a sequel to Dragon's Lair, if I remember, and I remember it not being that remarkable at the time, even though it probably was.
There was two. There's been 2 sequels to it.
Oh, really?
The first sequel was, yeah. The third sequel was released, like we're talking about, I think the 2000s.
Okay. What I remember, So what I remember from the second one was that no one really paid much attention to it, because CD-ROMs had pretty much passed on by this point. And it was like, oh yeah, that was that thing that nearly took off but kind of didn't. And there's Dragon's Lair 2 kind of limping along in the early 90s. And there was actually, the arcades were starting to kind of droop a little bit. When I think
even Space Ace was released about the time
Space
that was
Ace,
starting to droop.
Yeah, Space Ace I think was much more successful. And that actually was slightly different. But by the time Dragon's Lair 2 turned up, the whole CD-ROM thing was passing. And even when the arcades were going into 3D, that seemed to be their death knell, because suddenly these games got too expensive to make. That could be supported by 10, 20 cents or $1.
16 minutes of footage.
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow.
So guess what this means for, another Bluth company?
Yeah.
With arcades going through a death knell and starting to slump.
Well, you could probably think that. Probably the Nintendo probably would have had a bigger influence on that. I mean, in Australia, I think the Commodore 64 and the Commodore games and all that stuff had a lot to do. Like the bedroom programmers from Britain and Europe, there was a good contingent of them here. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the stuff coming out of the States and Japan was much more corporate.
Yeah.
And so you'll see things like these CD-ROM games like Dragon's Lair being ported to things like, what was it? The Sega Saturn, was that the one? Sega Saturn. There was in fact, every man and his dog had a CD-ROM arcade game.
I know there was an Amiga version, but the Amiga version was different than the actual.
Yeah.
It wasn't animated. It was pixelated. It was just awful. But
yes, it was, I remember it being very pixely. I was very underwhelmed.
Yeah. But yeah, so by 83, 84, it's bankrupt again.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So 1985, Sullivan Bluth Studios sets up, and I think that sets up in Ireland to work around union workplace agreements in America. And it's one of those things that actually kind of helped with the Irish animation industry and started to kickstart that to a degree.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, after Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, you've got Disney and his team up with Steven Spielberg. So Amblin. So with 2 big hit films, An American Tail, the story of Fireball, as in a parody of, not a parody, but
no, it's a classic take on an immigrant's journey.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And actually, it's a lot of my generation's first experience of how immigrants are treated and how how they experience their transition into the new world that they're making for themselves. So Fireball as a character is, you know, pretty cool. There's some is it Dom DeLuise playing the cat? It's great.
There's a lot of Don DeLuise in Bluth animation.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's got a voice, particularly for that. And then, you know, the often lauded Land Before Time, which is was not as huge as American Tail, but has like a cult following and something like 22 sequels or something.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's got a longer tail than American Tail.
Yeah.
And they were able to milk that quite significantly.
This is the made-for-video crowd, I take it.
Yeah. Continuing it through. The character designs are cute and nice. Like, it's very awesome. And there's a lot of homages to the Rites of Spring sequence in Fantasia. So, you know, Disney, Bluth celebrating what Disney had done before, while Disney was essentially trying to pull him down, because Disney was catching wind. It was Old Dogs Go to Heaven.
I think it's All Dogs Go to Heaven. They released
and they released The Little Mermaid on the same day.
Oh wow, that changed everything anyway. Yeah.
So, but it became a thing whenever Don Bluth would announce a movie, Disney would announce it and release it on the same day, within
a week before or a week after, or they'll do a re-release of a classic. They were aiming for the kneecaps. It definitely feels that way.
Yeah, Michael Eisner.
Kalimar.
All Dogs Go to Heaven is definitely a Don Bluth film, not made by Don Bluth, isn't it?
Well,
yeah, look at it.
It's Bluth Studios.
It's definitely a Don Bluth movie.
Yeah, it's. Hang on, I'm getting my film titles mixed up. Whoops, showing my age there, kids. But yeah.
But you know, Don Bluth had some follow-up films that just didn't go as well. I think a lot of these were commercial failures. Rockadoodle.
Yeah, all of them from here, I think, were commercial failures. Except for All Dogs. I think Rockadoodle also might have made its money back as a minor cult sort of situation, but it wasn't at the time.
Pebble and the Penguin and Troll in Central Park.
God, I don't even know these ones. This almost feels like straight.
They were definitely not standout films in the scheme of things.
No.
So.
Well, I guess Disney reinvented itself and reinvented modern animation with the Little Mermaid, right? And if you look at this old Don Bluth stuff, it really feels old-fashioned by comparison to the Little Mermaid.
It's strange how quickly it goes as well.
It was like day and night when that little film turned up. It was a whole new Disney. It was the new modern Disney reinventing itself, shedding its past. And then there's Don Bluth still going on doing the old stuff. Yeah.
And I think it really hurt him. Like that choice to maintain that traditional way of doing things. Not really. He didn't innovate beyond. You know, he got a style and he didn't step beyond it. He, with the exception of his last film, the last film. I mean, he's still doing stuff. It's not like he's completely disappeared, but you know, he doesn't. I see him occasionally on Facebook petitioning people to make a remake of or do a HD version of Dragon's Lair.
Well, it's on Steam, you know.
Yeah, and
so
why not?
Look up Dragon's Lair on Steam, and I think it's the old. It looks like it looks like the old video quality too. So it looks like they've actually, it's like an interactive movie, not a game. So
It'd be easy enough for today's technology to handle that. So yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Why? They could get AI to process it. Ooh. Anti-aliasing, scaling up, making funny colors, you know.
And
I think the only one,
go on.
the only one I remember is Titan AE.
Well, Anastasia.
And Anastasia and Titan AE, I think are the two.
So Anastasia came out first, was kind of a little bit of a sleeper. Like people weren't expecting it, to the point where when it did come out and the audiences started to go see it, everyone thought it was a Disney film. I remember, having a lot of people try and tell me that Anastasia was a Disney princess. I mean, it's all owned by Disney now, but.
Well, most of pop culture is owned by Disney now, so
But and it was a musical. It was definitely Don Bluth doing the big epic musical Disney style film. And it was his take. Maybe I could take it a little bit further, and he actually does take it further when he gets to Titan AE.
Yes,
like he's trying to be innovative. He's dealing with 3D animation. He's integrating like different shots with multiple layers of 3D animation and 2D animation. The space suit scenes are really, really nice and really, really well put together.
And it actually feels like it was made in the 80s, not the 70s or the 60s.
Yeah.
So I just remembered.
It was made in 2000.
2000.
Well, so he's keeping up. So I think the one thing that was notable about it was that it actually had the first proper space airlock scene, where you actually breathe out. You don't hold your breath when you go through an airlock with a vacuum on the other side. You just pop your lungs and burst your eardrums. You breathe out, apparently. I think Titan AD does it properly. Whereas 2001, when Dave Bowman goes to lobotomize Hal, he's kind of holding his breath. It's like, not the thing to do. Not in a vacuum.
Yeah,
do dreadful things to your alveoli. So it's not until The Expanse that I saw that done routinely. So well done, Don Bluth. Assuming I'm remembering this right.
Yeah. No. It has some really, really awesome scenes. With Matt Damon and Drew Barrymore, the main characters, do a great job. I kind of think it's underrated and people have forgotten about it too early. Because it fell into that time period where you've got Shrek and Toy Story and the beginning of 3D animation. It sort of disappeared in that snowball of 3D animation as they started closing down 2D Disney studios and
we finally got it together just in time for the whole tide to change yet again.
Because this is the last thing that Fox Animation does in America. They shut down mainland productions after this. So.
Don really hasn't done anything to that scale since. He's what? He should be retired, but he's still out there spruiking his way.
He's easily in his 90s, surely. 37?
37.
80.
It'd be late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. Would be 80, 88.
Sorry,
Math's brain. I think overall his contribution to animation has been great. He did a lot of cool stuff. He had some spectacular failures. He tried to do new things. It wasn't he did it on his own, like separate.
Yeah. You can also see that reverence to Disney that is there in his work. He really does love that sort of early Disney era, and you can see that romanticism there. And he also seems to love Americana as well. you take a look at the designs for Dragonlance and Space Ace, and that square-jawed 1950s hero just springs out at you. You take a look at his work in American Tail, teams with Spielberg, and that Americana romanticism is just littered throughout that work. And
the classic immigrants. Yeah, the classic
there's also a lot of animation that comes from that time period that is like the Warner stuff, and like Brad Bird, which feels like Don Bluth animation, but it's not, like the Iron Giant. You're looking at what is it? Quest for Camelot is around that time period as well, which sort of just fit into the. Yeah, and
I
the
think
Swan
with Iron
Princess.
Giant, I hear what you're saying. I think it's dipping into the same well rather than a direct tribute to.
Yeah,
Might be. I don't know.
but the Swan Princess, all of those movies from around that time period, and I think a lot of he put a lot of good animation out into the world, and a lot of good creative stuff that he definitely has some cult stuff that is always going to be remembered. Secret of Nim is not going to disappear. Anastasia is going to be with us. American Tail is going to be a timeless classic, and then then the others will appear and see. I'm curious to see if there'll be more Land Before Times. Kids will always go for the dinosaurs.
Well, look, it gets even referenced in Primal. Pretty darkly, but it's referenced.
It is, yeah. Definitely an influence, a nod. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the last dying years of 2D animation big scale before it got reinvented a few times in cable and I guess streaming. It's the last of the big animations, I guess.
And it's just with the last breaths we're seeing of Don Bluth out there in the world, the appearance of AI and what that's going to do with what we're doing. Like there's kind of that. We're in a weird time for us as professional animators, and I'm just curious to see who takes it and who runs with it and who does something spectacular.
Yeah, it's true. We are in a kind of end of the Cold War type moment, aren't we? We're seeing the end of American hegemony and all the cultural stuff that comes with that. So it's going to be interesting to see what turns up in the vacuum left behind. Well, we're probably already seeing it. If you look at all the multi-country cross-productions or co-productions that are going down all over the place, it'll be interesting.
A lot of people remember Land Before Time when they were a kid.
Well, they made enough of them, didn't they?
It was a big series. Yeah,
it was pretty huge. I think
it was the Jurassic Park before there was Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think even Disney's Dinosaur bounced off it. Because Disney's Dinosaur was essentially a big CGI attempt at making essentially a Land Before Time, but in 3D. And I remember seeing it, just waiting for the bloody thing to start. Oh, come back, Don Bluth.
Well, Disney's Dinosaur was not great. But.
No, it was definitely like we need to reupholster the theme park rides, so we need a new franchise.
I don't. There's that period of Disney's first 3D animations. So you've got Chicken Little, Dinosaur, Meet the Robinsons. I don't think they hit good 3D animation until Bolt.
Yes.
A lot of people will argue about Meet the Robinsons. Meet the Robinsons, I think they nailed the story and the comedy of it.
Yeah.
But the 3D still wasn't quite there. But Bolt really hit it there, despite having John Travolta as a main character. Um,
Maybe he was the particle of grit that a pearl formed around.
and from Olivia Newton-John to John Travolta tonight, I think the grease has run full circle, and
No, it's definitely the word.
we can and we can probably start winding ourselves up for the evening.
Indeed.
Yes. So thank you everyone for coming along and listening to our little ramble about Don Bluth and his life. Are we going to preview and tell everyone what we're doing next month, Dave?
Or should we say we're doing something else that's Disney related next month?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, we are.
Why is he looking
Disney-related.
so smug? I'm starting to worry now.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Disney related. Yeah.
Well, it is now, shall we say? It perhaps wasn't when it began.
Oh, that's a big clue.
That is a big
okay.
clue.
Right.
So maybe we're doing The Simpsons because they've taken over Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just
Matt Groening.
just thought-
We already did the Matt Groening episode where we talked about his 3 series. So yeah, but yeah, let's go away and come back next month and talk animation. So I think it's going to be goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. See you guys.
Thanks, Lindsay.
That's right.
And we Dave, and we'll sign off now.
Thanks and bye to all.
See you next month.